Patrick, let's talk about mantra. Let's talk about that's, that's
Om.
that's one. That's one of them. It's like let's talk about the psychology of mantra. It's like it's often talked about as it's such a spiritual thing. The mantra itself. I know a couple of things about this. I've refreshed my memory. It's from a Sanskrit word, not 1800s, the late 18th century. It's the 1700s. That means thought. The Sanskrit word is from two words, manas and tra, which manas is mind and tra is tool. So it's like I like to talk about practical mantra. If you have an elephant in India and you're going to walk the elephant, you're going to walk the elephant down through the marketplace. The elephant's, the trunk of the elephant is going to be very mischievous, and it's going to knock things over, and it's going to grab things, and it's going to throw things, do things like this. It'll get you in a lot of trouble. Said if you before you walk down through the marketplace, if you take a little twig and you hand it to you give it to the elephant to put it to hold in his trunk, he will walk straight through and never touch anything. And they said that is mantra. And what I realized with that, having spent my career working with intrapersonal landscape, all of the different aspects of us, there are people, is that I did know this, though, that as many different parts of me as there are, my conscious awareness can only be in one place at a time. So therefore, rather than feeling like I may feel like in some ways that I'm all these things at once, or I may feel like I'm hearing from all these things at once, but instead what's really happening is what I actually have a name for this too. I call it pinball consciousness. It's like, so I'm just pinballing around, ping, 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 all, and it's one of the reasons that when we start talking about, like I often will say to people, about my work is that I'll start a workshop by saying, how many of you talk to yourselves? And most people will raise their hand, and then some people may not, and so it leaves me open for the punchline, which is to say, okay, so those of you who didn't raise your hands, how many of you said, do I talk to myself? Making the point that that's how we think. We talk to ourselves back and forth, back and forth. That's one of the values of getting in touch with the intrapersonal. And a lot of times when people say people are very relieved to hear that they're not the only person who feel like there are many people up there. But sometimes they get the fear, oh my God, this is going to make me more crazy, and so I actually had a psychologist in one of my training workshops a long time ago say, he didn't like what I was presenting, and he said you're fragmenting your clients' personalities. I just tell you this story because I was proud of my comeback, which was I just paused for the right amount of time and said, yeah, but it's really good for business. And then just left that laying there. Everybody in that room thought that was funny except for that guy. And it's like, so, but I also like to add that I think I won that guy over before the day was out. But the idea is we don't make people crazier by having them be aware of all their various parts. We make them saner because it's more reality. It's the truth. The truth is we're not going to get I'm not going to get a unanimous vote on anything. I mean, I can't even get a unanimous vote on where to go to dinner because there's always the one holdout guy that always wants Mexican food. It's like whatever it is, but the more important the issue, the more likely it is. I teach people, the more likely it is that you're going to have more than one opinion, more than one feeling about it. And it's not about trying to decide which one is it. It's to basically say, I need to go into each of those and I need to listen to those things. What mantra helps us do is stay focused in a part of ourselves, a part of our consciousness that we need to develop it doesn't have to be therapy, but in our personal growth work, where what I think about it is where the I pronoun belongs, rather than, and one of the easier, simpler ways of looking at it is it's what we do when we get sober. It's like we do what Alan describes as differentiation. It's like what I just called separation. It's like, rather than say I have to have a drink, I separate and see and imagine my alcoholism as separate from me, and so my alcoholism says, Thom, you need to have a drink. Now, that changes the definition of the problem. So the problem now is no longer the fact that I have this message in my head that says drink, or I have this compulsion to drink. The problem is I have this message in there and I am agreeing to it. So it's an intercodependent relationship. Thom, take a drink. Okay. So that's we got to find, because it really feels like people will say this feels like the weakest part of me that you're centering me in, and I'm going like, well, it's weak only in that it's atrophied. It's like an atrophied muscle. It's like and people call it different things when we get into it. I think in the self-forgiveness handbook, I began calling it the decision maker. This is the person, one of the little nutshells I have, hanging around says, yeah, forget about being in control. Your job is to be in charge of your life, and being in charge means, I don't control what cards are dealt me, but I can become a good card player. I can learn what to do with these situations. So the decision maker is the one who takes responsibility, accepts responsibility for all of this. And it's that decision maker that needs mantra. And mantra is that little twig, that the elephant has in the trunk, to hold on to that. And to basically, and it doesn't mean we're not going to be bopping around in our pinball consciousness but something that just keeps us, gives us a place to come back to again and again and again. And I'm talking now. You can use mantra in meditation is a wonderful thing. I'm just, what I'm talking about is sort of a mantra to use in a daily life. We do it all the time anyway. If you think about AA cliches, those are mantras, one day at a time. How many, we say it over and over again. It's a place where we come back to. I had one that I actually put on my Cafe Press shop. I have it on a T-shirt, mug. It was three. I just used 3 words for a number of years. I still refer to them, but I've kind of moved on to some other things. But the 3 words I started my day with were they were humility, gratitude, kindness. Humility, and I actually had my practice was, as I let the ducks out of their cage for the day in the morning, was I would focus on each of those words for a moment. I would picture those words. I would, and what I'm just simply saying to myself with repeating those words in my mind, sometimes silently, sometimes aloud, is, if my day will include these 3 things: gratitude, kindness, and humility, it'll be a good day. Okay. And so it's a little, it's just, even though it's longer than Om, it's an extended thing, but it basically is a center point. It's something that I'm going to hold in the very center of my authentic self and use it as a way of guiding me, but also a way of measuring of how I'm doing. Okay. So when I lose my place, I go back to the mantra. It's like, if we use the meditation metaphor, what happens is, if we do breath counting meditation. So if we're going to sit here and practice, and we're going to just count our breaths to 10, neither one of us is going to make it to 10. And if you tell me you did, then I'm going, you're lying. Now, Patrick, you have to make amends for cheating at meditation. That's not a good thing. But it's like, no, our mind is so undisciplined. It's like, so we're gonna. I mean, before I get to 2, my mind has gone off into storyland and doing this other stuff. What does the meditation teacher teach us to do with that? It's a mantra. It's mantra psychology. Come back to one. It's just, and that is the psychology of mantra, in my opinion, is whatever it is. If it's gratitude, or I used to have a sentence I used every morning when I was driving to work, which was and it's kind of a prayer thing. It's like, let me be helpful today and have a nice time. And those, the simpler the better. And I used to tell it to people, and sometimes people would kind of just make a face at the second part, like it was like like it was trivial. But I'm going like, and me for a long time now, it's like, having a nice time is not a trivial thing to me. It's like I'm pretty devoted to it, But the idea is, I have no problem at all believing that I can be helpful to people, I can be useful to people, and still be enjoying myself along the way. And I think I'm a better person for doing both of those things. So that was just personally mine. So I'll challenge people, just write one sentence and just use it for over and over and over again for a long time, and see where these things are like magnets. They'll attract information for you to learn more about it. But the idea is that part of you that's in charge is in charge and has something to hold on to, like that elephant holds on to that twig when it walks down the marketplace.